We are definitely out of our element today, boys and girls. We are at Athens Motocross Park here in Athens, Texas. And we've got the Ginger, right? We've got the Seat Time Steve, but we are back with Brian's story. There's gonna be great times, many things to share. But first thing, we're gonna add 10 clicks of compression to the fork and to the shock, so it'll be the low speed on the shock. Brian and I are gonna talk about why. He's gonna film me at a motocross track, and it's gonna be probably one of the most comedic things you've ever watched. So I'm excited to bring this to you guys. Let's enjoy getting some seat time today. Those first couple laps were pretty pathetic. I hate to admit it, but I have not galled up for any of those jumps yet. Like even the hill to ride up and over, I just can't. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable in the sand and remembering to pinch really tight with my legs, right? That's where I'm controlling the bike from and stuff. Keep the front end a little bit lighter in the sand. Turns are going okay, but yeah, man, it's so interesting to watch guys ride faster than me because they can do the jumps. But I watch the way that they turn, and it's like if I could just do the jumps, I'd be leaps and bounds faster than them. But they just can do the jumps and I can't. Maybe I can by the end of the day, but I'm not pressuring myself for that. We're just out here enjoying getting seat time, learning something new, doing something different, changing it up a little. Today are at a true national speed style open true sand track because it was the only place today that we could find to go ride. It's a quite a change for Brian here. I'm a variety guy. I grew up racing enduros, but I've learned over the years that I really enjoy variety, and I've found that it really helps me become a more versatile rider altogether. Because things cross over a lot. Out here being a true sand track, which a lot of times national level just has to do with how big the layout is. They're usually more about carrying your momentum, sweeping turns. They get really rough, especially like today because it's a true sand track. Some tips that I gave Brian right off the bat were when you come out of corners and you get into jumps, try to squeeze with your knees. And if you're gonna do the jump, try to jump it with as much momentum as possible. Don't be hard on the throttle out of the face, especially if it's a face that you can't hit perfectly straight. Because what you find in loose dirt tracks, when you're trying to get over these jumps, you find that when you're hard on the throttle, the rear tire will actually be spinning at a higher mile per hour than the front tire will be spinning. When that happens, the bike has a great tendency to do one of these or one of those off the face. So it's super important when you're riding tracks like this to carry your momentum and try to jump the jumps with momentum as much as possible. So that difference in wheel speed of that rear tire spinning has a lot less chance of it biting, and you go sideways off a face, and then you end up swapping out and widen your stuff up. You have very little traction in a sand track. So when you have little traction, the sharper you turn, the more traction you need, obviously. So if you make big sweeping turns or follow a berm around, if there's a nice berm, you can carry much more momentum than say going up the inside and making a tight apex. So these are just the quick tips I gave Brian before we went out to do our warm-up. I've got more comfort to go. I haven't jumped a single jump yet, and in the long run I may not, and I'm okay with that. To be like, that's not what this is about. This is about coming to something new, learning a little bit of different style, and just getting more comfortable on the bike as a whole, for me anyway. And it's okay not to jump jumps at a motocross track as long as you use some common sense. There's a few jumps that are blind, okay, at every track. If it's a blind jump and you're not going to be jumping it, there's normally almost always a main line where the fast guys jumping it are hitting it from. Just get out of that line. A lot of times I'll even just do a quick wave if I'm battling with somebody and for some reason I get squirrely out of the turn and I'm not going to be able to clear that jump. I'll do a quick wave, but at the same time I'll always pull out of that main jumping line just to not have the risk of them landing on me and taking us both out. My wife also always has me pull out of the main line. Yeah, I would too. There's no need for more of you. Right. One last thing on that turning out early that I saw you do a little bit in the warm up. When you go to turn out early of any bermed or rut turn, there's a lot of times there's already a little shelf, a little rut that when you try to turn out of that, you'll push the front end
Next thing you know, you're doing a little geology work with your visor laying on your face. Yeah, it's a problem I've even had it myself at 6 days before when we run the same cross test day after day after day. A lot of times the line will get pushed so far out, and your natural tendency is to pull it in some, but you're working against the inside of that rut, and you end up pushing the front end and going, okay, yeah, don't do this.
For these berms, what I need to try to think about is not feeling like I rode them fast, but it's literally, as dumb as it sounds, following the line. Like, what is the main line of the berm, and just riding that line until it starts to register of how to do that correctly.
You're outside your element a little bit today, but it's still a dirt bike,
right, on
dirt. But just try to carry your momentum, try to make smooth, sweeping lines. Look where you're going, you know, don't look where you are. Set up before the turn, do your braking before the turn, and then accelerate all the way through the turn to keep the bike settled all the way through the turn, and follow the berm around. You'll find that when tracks are built properly like this one, his berms are awesome. You can follow the berm all the way around, and it'll carry you right to the right place for the next turn.
Wicked. All right, I'm gonna go get some more laps in, and then when you get done with your break, come save me and follow me for a couple laps.
Awesome. Covering some ground that you don't need to be covering, and you're also turning out of a lot of the turns too soon.
Really?
Still. You exited it both times and came back and crossed all the way over and went over the little step up where the people from the inside line were taking it. So that put you at odds with their ruts, which tends to make the bike do some weird stuff. I'd like to see more squeezing of the bike and weight towards the back when you're accelerating into some of these turns as well. Overall, your technique didn't look bad, but there's also, I mean, a few corners you're covering ground you didn't need to. When we go into the 180 left right before the whoops, it's super easy to make that inside. There's no reason for you to, and that inside rut.
I've always wondered about that turn because it seems so weird. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, ugh.
The only people going outside where you're going are launching from the wall into the whoops. No need to cover ground that you don't need to cover.
I like the way you say that though. No need to cover ground you don't need to cover. So a lot of it is just like, I'm just taking up track for no reason.
Absolutely. I mean, you obviously want to have your eyes open, and when you're at a motocross track, and if there's more than one line, look at all those lines, but then look at the track. So if there's not a jump that you're lining up to do, and you don't need the more momentum, and that outside berm isn't magical for whatever reasons, then, you know, there's a nice flow to the inside, then just take that inside. Don't cover that extra ground. even though you were taking the outside lines, in several of those turns, you weren't entering the outside at the beginning of the turn. You were coming into it a third of the way through. That would upset the chassis a little bit. Make sure you need to try to get into those outside lines as early as you can get into them and flow all the way around.
Brian, I rode a motocross track. I didn't die. You even saw me attempt a jump or two, but in the long run, man, like, how did it go today for us?
You grew again. You grew. You gained some more confidence. Your technique got better. You started to understand the lines better. It'll pay off. All these things pay off and make you a more rounded rider. And frankly, where the heck else were we going to ride today? It rained all day
It was
yesterday.
all day yesterday.
I mean, there's no place to go play in the trails unless we were just going to be digging our bikes out of mud holes all day. So it's fantastic to have an option like this.
This sand track was insane. You said that you even brought the master pools out here to this sand track. Like, so this is like a legit national style sand track.
Yeah, they have 3 tracks here. They have a turn track that's over here that's just nothing but 4 or 5 foot tall sand whoops and deep sand. And then this is what they call their national track route we rode today. But I did bring the master pool boys and some other national guys out to do some setup and testing here right before Southwick this past year. There's not a lot of places like this here in Texas to test this kind of stuff here in North Texas areas.
What's crazy is, now that I've been working more with Brian, he keeps talking about all of these motocross tracks that are all over this state that I have never even heard of, never knew were there, and now I'm getting a chance to have a technique and a style that I never thought I would have. And I also have a level of comfortability out here that, again, as a woods racer, as an enduro racer, I never would have thought that I would have had. But I think that I know exactly what you're talking about this is going to transfer into the woods. Because carrying speed out here, when you're not zipping by trees, like, you don't realize how fast you can go. It'll be interesting to see how it all relates.
It will relate. When you ride on a sand track, for instance, like this, you're never solidly stuck to the ground. Both your wheels are sliding one way or another all the time, and the more comfortable you are with that feeling, it transfers to all types of riding you do. You get more comfortable with that bike moving around underneath you, and it just builds confidence and allows you to ride harder everywhere you go.
One thing that was interesting that Brian told me is, like, I would like to see you lean back more, weight further back on the bike. And I'm like, I am. And then I went back out and I was like exaggerating it, and I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much more room back here than what I thought was there. And it's because there was just this baseline comfort level that I had created for myself of how far back I'm gonna go. Right. So when you told me that, I went out there and I was like, okay, F it. Like, how far is too far? I didn't find it. Right? Like, and it was just so crazy.
But this was just when standing, okay? There's no,
okay,
no sitting back on the bike. This is just when standing. When you got to the apex of the corners, you still dropped down and into the pocket of the seat to make the bike,
right.
to make the bike apex where you wanted it to. We're going fast here. This is higher speed than most of your off-road racing's gonna be. The ground's loose everywhere underneath you. So yeah, back, got your butt, hips back, and squeeze them with your knees, and you can just lay into it and the bike will mow it down. Doesn't really matter where the sand is gone from the rider in front of you, the bike will mow it down and you can make your own line.
So now I'm carrying a little bit more speed, right? Because I've got that weight further back, I'm giving it a little bit more. He mentioned I was braking about 25 yards before we had even gotten to the berm. He's like, Brian, you've got so much more room to either coast if you're not comfortable with the speed, or at least give it some more gas. And I started to play with that, and I was coming into some of these turns hotter than I was before, and honestly, I could feel the way that I exited the turns because of that I was just legitimately going faster. But it was really, I was just using the brakes less.
You were using the brakes less, and you were staying on the gas longer. You were gaining confidence. Sometimes people just need a little push. You just needed a little push.
He was out there like,
times today. right. Did have to remind you that between my motorcycle and me, we're going to turn 70 this year.
He's much older than me.
So I did have to remind you that the bike went by you a couple of times today. Was the 70 combined age, and that helps with motivation, I think.
He's older and faster than me.
Helps you twist the throttle a little bit more, you know?
Well, dude, again, I really appreciate the time. If you guys are looking for anything, you don't just have to be in North Texas. Like, Brian will be able to talk to you on the phone and give you help, even if it were video. So make sure you're finding him on Facebook, on Instagram. He'll be tagged in all the things so that you can get some help like I'm trying to do. That's why we want to create this, though, is to entertain and educate you guys, and you have places to go to kind of continue to just progress a little bit on the bike.
Yep. I'm actually flying to California in just a couple of weeks to do some lessons with some great guys out there. So I will travel.
If your wife wants to go to the place you're traveling to, you will travel.
That helps a lot. And if there's a cool event in the area while I'm there. But anyway, if anybody has any questions, send it to me on social media or through Seat Time, and I'll do everything I can to help you guys out, help you guys understand the why behind the what.
I love it. Guys, enjoy getting Seat Time. If we don't see you on the trail, we'll see you here on the internet. See you for the next one. Peace!